You've probably felt it before. You're sitting outside, maybe on a porch, maybe near a window, and at some point, you realize the yard has gone quiet. Not gradually, not slowly, all at once. The birds that were there a moment ago are gone. The rustling in the shrubs has stopped. Even the insects seem to have pulled back. And the world, for just a moment, holds its breath. Most people notice this and move on. Maybe they assume a cloud passed over, or the wind shifted, or nothing happened at all. They go back to their coffee, their book, their phone. But something did happen. Something very specific. And the silence you heard, that sudden, complete absence of sound, was actually a message, a coordinated signal broadcast across your entire yard that every animal there understood immediately. You were the only one who didn't know what it meant. To understand what's happening in that silence, you have to first understand what the yard sounds like when it isn't silent. A functioning backyard, in the ecological sense, is not quiet. It is layered. There are birds calling from high branches and birds calling from low ones. Sparrows chip from the feeder. Robins move across the grass, stopping, tilting their heads, listening for earthworms beneath the surface. Squirrels move through the leaves with a particular kind of purposeful noise. Not panicked, not cautious, just present. Somewhere in the background, insects fill the space between all of it with a constant low hum. This is what a yard sounds like when it is functioning normally. When every animal in it has decided, based on information it's constantly collecting, that the environment is safe enough to eat, to sing, to move, to exist out in the open. The sound isn't random, it's consensus, and when it stops, all of it together, that's a different kind of consensus. Birds are the most important communicators in this system, and not just to each other. They function in a very real way as a public alert network that almost every other animal in an outdoor space has learned to read. Squirrels monitor bird calls, deer listen to them. Even some insects respond to bird alarm patterns. The birds aren't just talking to birds. They're broadcasting into an ecosystem that has, over a very long time, learned to tune in. And birds produce two fundamentally different kinds of alarm signals. The first is what most people think of when they imagine a bird alarm call. A sharp, loud, repeated sound. You've heard it. A crow cawing in short, hard bursts. A blue jay screaming from a fence post. A mockingbird throwing itself into the air over something on the ground. These calls are loud because they're meant to be. They're mobbing calls or pursuit calls. They point towards something. A cat slinking through the garden, a snake in the grass, a threat that's moving, visible, trackable. The birds want everyone to know exactly where it is. But the second type of alarm, the one that produces silence, is completely different. It's called a seat call in some species. A high, thin, narrow frequency that's very difficult to locate in space. Hard to pinpoint. Hard to trace back to the bird making it. And in some situations, birds don't call at all. They simply stop, drop low, disappear into cover. And when one bird does this, others notice, and they do the same. And within seconds, the entire yard has responded to something none of them have necessarily seen yet. That's when the silence falls. The silence means a predator is near, not passing, near, present, active, and the specific shape of the silence. How complete it is, how fast it came, how long it holds, carries information inside it. A silence that falls slowly, gradually, with a few birds staying active near the edges, usually means a ground-level predator. A cat, a fox, a raccoon moving through at a distance. The threat is real, but not immediate. Some birds go quiet, some stay cautious. The hum drops, but doesn't vanish entirely. A silence that falls all at once, say, instantly, completely, like a switch was thrown. Usually means a hawk. This is important, because hawks hunt from above, and they move fast, and they are extraordinarily good at what they do. The birds in your yard have learned, through experience, through instinct, through generations of selection, that when a hawk is in the area, Motion is dangerous. Sound is dangerous. Being visible is dangerous. The best strategy in that moment is to stop, to compress yourself against a branch, drop behind a fence post, push into the center of a bush, to become still and small and quiet and wait. And every animal in that yard executes this strategy at the same time, because they're all reading the same signal from the same source. When you hear your yard go completely silent, there is almost certainly a hawk nearby, or the birds believe there is, which, functionally, is the same thing. There's a researcher named Donald Kreutzma who has spent decades studying bird communication, and one of the things his work points toward, and many other ornithologists have expanded on, is that bird calls are not just reactive noise. They contain structure. They carry specific information. Different threats get different responses, and those responses are sometimes specific enough that other birds can interpret. Not just that danger is present, but what kind and where. Some birds have what researchers describe as functionally referential alarm calls, signals that refer to a specific type of danger, in the way that a word refers to a thing. A vervet monkey does this famously, with distinct calls for eagles, snakes, and leopards that produce different escape responses. But birds do versions of this too, and the backyard birds you've watched your whole life are part of this system. The silence is the most extreme version of it. It says, "Threat overhead, threat fast, stop moving, now." And the remarkable thing is that this isn't just a single species responding, it's multi-species. Sparrows read the alarm calls of warblers. Warblers read the alarm calls of chickadees. Squirrels have learned to read them too. The system is open. The signal is shared. Your yard is not a collection of individual animals doing individual things. It is a network. And that network has a warning system that has been running and refining itself for longer than our species has existed. Here's where it gets more interesting. Because the silence isn't just passive. It isn't just absence. While your yard appears to be doing nothing, it is actually doing something very specific. The birds that have gone still are watching. They haven't gone far. They're compressed into cover, positioned where they can see without being seen, and they are waiting for information. What they're waiting for is the all clear. And that signal is almost as interesting as the alarm itself. It often starts with one bird, a small movement, a single chip note, very quiet. Then another bird, a few seconds later. Then the insects begin to return tentatively to their frequency. Then another call. Then another. And slowly, usually over 2 to 5 minutes, though sometimes longer, the yard reassembles itself. Sound returns in layers. The consensus reforms. And you, sitting on your porch, might not even notice it happening. You just noticed that at some point things started sounding normal again. What you witnessed in the middle of that was the nervous system of a small ecosystem running its reset protocol. Now, there's a version of this that's more complicated, and it involves you, or rather, it involves anyone. Animals in residential environments, birds, squirrels, rabbits, the whole community of creatures that have learned to coexist with human presence, develop what researchers sometimes call baseline assessments. They learn what normal looks like. They learn what you look like. They track patterns. The bird that visits your feeder every morning doesn't just show up randomly. It has mapped your yard, learned your schedule, assessed your behavior over time, and made a decision about your level of threat. This takes weeks, sometimes months, and it produces something remarkable, a zone of tolerance around familiar humans, where birds and other animals will continue their normal behavior even with a person present, as long as that person stays consistent, doesn't move suddenly, doesn't change their pattern. Longtime birdwatchers know this. They'll tell you that the longer you sit quietly in the same place, the closer the birds come. Not because the birds have forgotten you're there, but because they've decided you're safe. You've been assessed, filed, But here's the other side of that. When something unfamiliar enters the yard, a new person, a new movement, an object that wasn't there yesterday, the birds notice. And they treat novelty with suspicion, because novelty is statistically more dangerous than the familiar. Evolution has been selecting for caution around the new for a very long time. If you've ever had your yard go quiet when a visitor arrived, or when you moved your furniture outside, or when something simply changed, this is part of what you were observing. Not just fear of a predator, fear of a disruption in pattern, a break in the known. Let that sit for a moment. Because it means that the birds in your backyard have a model of your yard, a working map of what belongs, what moves when, what is safe. And that model is continuously updated and continuously cross-referenced with what every other animal in the space is doing. The silence that falls isn't just a reaction, it's a recalibration, a moment where the whole network pauses, collects data, and decides what to do next. You have probably been part of that recalibration without knowing it. There's one more layer worth considering. The quality of that warning system, how fast it activates, how quickly it resets, how many species participate in it, is a reflection of the health of the habitat. In a yard or outdoor space with high biodiversity, multiple species of birds, different layers of vegetation, a range of insects, some structural complexity in the plants, the warning network is dense, many nodes, fast signals, redundancy. An alarm from one corner of the yard reaches the other corner almost instantly because there are enough animals in between to relay it. In a simplified space or in a mowed lawn, a single ornamental tree, a few generalist species, the network is thin. Warnings travel slower or not at all. The system is less sensitive, which sounds on the surface like it might be more peaceful, but it's actually just quieter in the wrong way. A yard that never goes silent in response to a hawk isn't necessarily safer. It's just less aware. The information is still there. The hawk is still there. The network just isn't dense enough to respond to it coherently. The silence you've been hearing isn't a sign of fear. It's a sign of function. It means the ecosystem in your yard is alive enough, connected enough, complex enough to act as a unit, to share information, to coordinate. That silence is something close to intelligence, distributed, instinctive, ancient. So, the next time your yard goes quiet, don't look away. Look up first. Scan the sky, the top edges of the trees, the telephone lines. Often, if you're patient, you'll see it. A Cooper's hawk perched and watching, or a red-tailed hawk circling slowly overhead, or a sharp-shinned hawk threading through the branches. The birds knew it was there before you had any idea. And then watch the edges. Watch the places where things had been moving, the feeder, the bird bath, the shrub where the sparrows like to land. And notice that they're still. Not empty, necessarily. The birds are still there, in many cases, just invisible inside the cover, waiting. And if you stay still and quiet and patient, if you don't move or change or disrupt the pattern, you will eventually hear the yard come back. One small sound at a time. One bird deciding it's safe enough to move. One insect resuming its frequency. The whole system reassembling itself around a new consensus. And when that happens, when the sound returns and the birds come back to the feeder and the squirrels resume their argument with the fence post, you're not watching nature going back to normal. You are watching a network that has just processed information, assessed a threat, coordinated a response across species, and arrived at a collective decision. You are watching something that has been happening in backyards and forests and fields and the edges of every place where living things gather for millions of years. And the only thing that changed today is that you know what it means. Know what?